to start by thanking the Trans States team for holding this together and inviting me at the same time. So thank you very much. All right. What I will present is basically an approach I have been using for illustration practice, which is the design, the creation of a creative framework that allows me to produce my works in a particular way. So I'm going to start talking about the theoretical background of the underpinning of the framework, and then I will pass to some visual examples of the things I do with it. All right. Johann Huizinga's early study on play, Homo ludens, defined it as a significant function intimately related to the origin of human culture. Regarding the characteristics of play, Huizinga argues that it is a free activity standing quite consciously outside ordinary life, being not serious, and at the same time with the capacity of absorbing the player intensely and utterly. In Men and the Sacred, Roger Caillois contested Huizinga's position by arguing that play is the serious activity par excellence. Caillois sustained his argument saying that play and rituals have many things in common. Therefore, the experience of play can be related to a sacred experience. Caillois stated that when one plays is removed from reality. Concordantly, anthropologists Philippe Labourte and Jean-Pierre Barnier argue play is related to magic, and for that reason, it is also inseparable from rites. Additionally, according to these authors, when art is close to its religious function, its role is to point out the transcendent, to establish a link that overcomes death, a connection between the living and their ancestors, between this world and the beyond. Concordantly, that definition seems very close to the one given by André Breton in the second manifesto of Surrealism. Everything tends to make us believe that there exists a certain point of the mind in which life and death, the real and the imagined, past and future, the communicable and the incommunicable, high and low, cease to be perceived as contradictions. Hyperdream is a play-based creative framework that I have developed for fantasy authorial illustration practice inspired by the world of dreams, reverie states, and lucid dreaming. I named it Hyperdream because it means beyond dreams. This is related to the way Jung defined active imagination, dreaming the dream onwards, or dreaming the myth onwards. This framework encompasses different ludic approaches, techniques, and tools designed to provoke motivation through randomness and unexpectedness, which in turn allows the emergence of raw archetypal and symbolic unconscious material. At the same time, the objective of many of the tools of the creative framework is to bypass directed thinking by the systematic practice of activities that might enhance fantasy thinking, a concept introduced by Jung in 1912. I argue that the thought processes involved in the creation of fantasy illustration should be related to fantasy thinking, which can be provoked by playful activities practiced as magic rituals. Additionally, in immediatism, Hakim Bey argues that the immediacy of play could be a vital strategy to save art from alienation. He states that all experiences are mediated, either by sense perception, mentation, language, and therefore all art is composed by some further level of mediation. Moreover, Bey stresses that the intervention of capital signals further degrees of mediation in the art field. This means that a standing in between has occurred. For Bey, the problem is that this mediation leads to a split in our vital experience, and consequently, this split leads to alienation. Concordantly, one of the reasons for the creation of this creative framework was that at a certain point in my illustration career, I started to feel a separation between what I wanted to do and what the industry wanted me to do. Therefore, I created a device to make sure I returned to the original drive that motivated me to draw, play. For Huizinga, the magic circle is a symbolic space within which the playful activity or the game takes place. Huizinga comments, "We found that one of the most important characteristics of play is its spatial separation from ordinary life." Here, Huizinga mentions an important concept derived from anthropology, the concept of the magic circle, and he remarks that all of these are temporary words within the ordinary world, dedicated to the performance of an act apart. In addition, Mary-Louise von Franz explains that the magic circle can be referred as a temenos, the sacred space set apart by drawing a circle. The word temenos comes from temno, to cut, therefore it indicates being cut out from the meaningless, profane layer of life. Thus, a temenos is an asylum, and within it one is untouchable. Such a place has the double function of protection from for what is within and exclusion of what is without, and of concentration on what is within. Therefore, the magic circle could be also understood as a symbol of the psyche and the artistic activity. That is precisely the way I understand Hyperdream, as a magic circle. Hyperdream and Surrealism. As a starting point in the development of the original play-based creative framework, I have been trying surrealist games and surrealist theory as well, of course. Surrealists used playful activities as a means to induce a different thinking mode in order to reach their goal of recovering the marvelous. Anne Kern explains Surrealists sought two objectives with their ludic practices: diversion, above all, the pleasure principle, and a path back to the unconscious, or the royal road, using Freud's terminology. Kern indicates that in the first manifesto of Surrealism, Breton states, Surrealism is based on the belief in the superior reality of certain forms of previously neglected associations, in the omnipotence of dream, in the disinterested play game of thought. As Cardinal and Short point out, Surrealists gave games the status of research experiments. However, for these authors, Surrealists enjoyed them as non-utilitarian activities, even they recognized that what they found appealing in them was chance itself and the possibility of an unconscious understanding between the participants. In a book of Surrealist game, Brotchie and Gooding comment, in one particular and important respect, Surrealist play is more like a kind of provocative magic. This is in its irrepressible propensity to transformation of objects, behavior, and ideas. Jung on fantasy thinking. In the second chapter of Symbols and of Transformation, Carl Jung argues that there are two kinds of thinking, directed thinking and fantasy thinking. The former is logical thinking or reality thinking and can be related to processes based on directed attention. The latter turns away from reality and sets free subjective wishes. Considering my practice is inspired by dreams, fantasy, visions, and myths, this aspect of Jung's thought is of great interest regarding my work. Additionally, in Jung on Art, Geo van den Berg argues that rational thinking consists of thoughts and is related to the logos, while fantasy thinking consists of images and is related to the mythos. Because according to Jung, it is through fantastic thinking that we have access to the unconscious. Jung states, through fantasy thinking, directed thinking is brought into contact with the oldest layers of the human mind, long buried beneath the threshold of consciousness. The fantasy products directly engaging the conscious mind are, first of all, waking dreams or daydreams. What Jung aims to say is that it is through these fantasies that directed thinking could have knowledge of its oldest foundations. In addition, van den Berg argues that fantasy thinking is the engine behind creative processes. This idea is key for the later development of Jung's therapeutic method of active imagination in 1913, in which he associates fantasy with the symbol creating function of the psyche. These fantasy images might be important for everyone, but from my point of view, they are vital for artists. In my case, I argue that this unconscious mythological world is a first source of inspiration for the works I produce with the creative framework. Jung on play. Jung argues that fantasy is the principle behind play. According to Jung, the imagination is the reproductive or creative activity of the mind in general. Fantasy as imaginative activity is identical with the flow of psychic energy. Additionally, he indicates that behind this whole process is something much more powerful, the symbol-forming activity of the psyche or creative fantasy. Thus, he defended that the ambiguous character of play being serious and not serious at once and relates it to everything creative. Jung argues, if play expires in itself without creating anything durable and vital, it is only play, but in the other case, it is called creative work. Out of a playful movement of elements whose interrelations are not immediately apparent, patterns arise which an observant and critical intellect can only evaluate afterwards. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the object it loves. This way, Young underlines the importance of play, not just as a leisure activity, but also as something that maintains the equilibrium between conscious and unconscious processes. Therefore, the necessity of play as a creative balancing activity. Additionally, Jean Chodorov argues, the great joy of play, fantasy, and imagination is that for a time we are utterly spontaneous, free to imagine anything. In such state of pure being, no thought is unthinkable, nothing is unimaginable. That is why play and imagination tend to put us in touch with psychic material that is ordinarily repressed. Young on active imagination. Young developed a technique to bring to consciousness the material gathered in dreams, in daydreaming, or in fantasies. He named the method active imagination. For Young, working with one's dreams is a key method for engaging with the processes that he originally called the transcendent function, which was inspired by his own playful experiences and Schiller's aesthetic letters for the education of man. The transcendent function operates as a uniting principle or uniting symbol that enables the connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind. Active imagination is a key step in the process of individuation, which, apart from its healing benefits, helps to shape one's personal voice and vision of reality. This method is based on what Young called the natural healing function of the imagination. The method suggests an evocative, meditative procedure aimed to suspend our rational critical faculties, followed by a concentration on inner voices or images. There are two basic stages in active imagination. First, letting the unconscious manifest, and second, reconciling with it. My interest in this Jungian technique is that it is a powerful tool for visual artists like myself who want to work inspired by the material that emerges from the unconscious, due to the fact that the method is based on the image-producing function of the psyche. By using this technique, I might be able to activate fantasy thinking and to channel it by artistic activity. Therefore, as active imagination uses one's own unconscious materials, I use it to reinforce my individuation process. The next concept is flow. In Beyond Boredom and Anxiety, Experiencing Flow in Work and Play, Csikszentmihalyi studied what he called flow experiences. These are states of peak enjoyment, creativity, concentration, and energetic focus lived by persons who engage or merge with the activities at hand, reporting high levels of enthusiasm and excitement. Csikszentmihalyi studied these experiences and detected there were certain patterns in the phenomenon. First, goals are clear. Second, feedback is immediate. 3, skills match challenges. 4, concentration is deep. 5, problems are forgotten. 6, control is possible. 7, self-consciousness disappears. 8, the sense of time is altered. And 9, the experience becomes autotelic. For Csikszentmihalyi, activities such as games, arts, and sports are designed to provoke an optimal experience of absorption with the activity at hand and define that state of completely focused motivation as flow or autotelic experience, the holistic sensation that people feel when they act with total involvement. In addition, Csikszentmihalyi states, games are obvious flow activities and play is the flow experience par excellence. He comments, one is led to believe that play's function is to provide a specific taste of experience, which we have called flow. Moreover, Csikszentmihalyi also discovered that flow activities were done for pure enjoyment rather than for status, money, or obligation. Additionally, Csikszentmihalyi states, to remain in flow, one must increase the complexity of the activity by developing new skills and taking on new challenges. This also applies to the increasing complexity of some of the exercises I have been designing. Now we are going to pass to the exercises. First of all, this general concept, which is the concept of solvent and coagula coming from alchemy, but applied to illustration. I divided the exercises I collected and or designed in 2 main groups, cutting and liquating. I associate these 2 states with solvent and coagula. Cutting up could be related to shredding, mincing, pulverizing, etc., while liquating should be associated with blending, liquefying, and united. While the former works as a preparation or an exercise, the latter is the separation or purification of a state of consciousness by melting one's own polarities. It could be said that this is the goal of using the Hyperdream play-based creative framework. Now we're going to see some examples. This is a method developed actually it was probably comes from the cave paintings, which is to try to find shapes in stains or clouds, chaotic patterns, basically. I use it to. This was done half with tea stains, and then the drawing is done on top. You can pass to the next. Then I have been trying lots of these surrealist games, especially Exquisite Corpses in all its variations, and some new I developed. And I think to the practice of this, I understood this concept of the unconscious connections we can produce through the exercise. It is quite similar to the concept developed by David Cronenberg in this film from the 70s, Stereo. I don't know if you've seen it. So it's, if you get closer to a person, the possibility of unconscious connections also becomes stronger. So we can pass to the next one, please. This is the use of collage, a classical technique, but then how I transform the collage into something inspired by the image, but different at the same time. Can pass to the next, because we're Cut Up, developed by originally Tristan Tzara, but then Geisin and Burroughs, and I combine it with the scrapbook technique, which is the next slide as well. So I use these scrapbooks to paste a lot of images and then to decorate them in different ways. And afterwards, I create something I call virtual collage, because it's like, instead of, very well, virtual collage, I just draw the images I get from the scrapbook as in a drawing instead of pasting them. We can pass to the next, please. This is one of the things I developed for the creative framework. It's a set of cards originally inspired by tarot that I used for producing this kind of illustrations, coming out from the same concept of the scrapbook. So we can pass to the next. This is a new deck of cards I've been developing, which is, I call them Hyperdream cards, and are designed to be used alone or to be combined with the previous cards to get this kind of oniric feelings. I believe I'm heading to a new tarot design, but I haven't arrived to that point. So we can pass to the next, please. This is a cut-up graphic novel I have been doing, which consisted on pasting up together parts of a video, an experimental video I did, but then I started to add new things that actually come from my past and from new drawings I've been doing, and the story is now emerging. So it's a quite interesting process, because you don't work with a script, so it's kind of opposite of the way you work in the industry. So we can pass to the next. These are sound-inspired illustrations. We are still working with something previous. Let's say this is sound, but the images are freer. So initially this exercise was developed by listening to initially Miles Davis records. For me, they are the more synesthetic of all. But then also John Zorn, Bill Laswell, all this kind of music I love. Steve Roach, I don't know, a lot of different musicians. And we can pass to the next one, please. The goal, I believe, of the thing I've been doing is to arrive to what I call free play. It is. There are no references here, just a blank paper, and then we start drawing as in automatic drawing. But I'm very careful of using the term, because, you know, there is always mediation, and I believe only occasionally one arrives to that point of automatic drawing. It's quite delicate to talk about that. You know, you have to be intoxicated a little, maybe, or dreamy, I don't know, this kind of state. Maybe you can do it, but I prefer to call it free play, because it's based on the concept of just basic patterns recombined, and then you jump to the improvisation using certain known patterns. Come back to the next one and the last one, and then the conclusions are, for me, art, play, and magic are inseparable and undistinguishable. They all aim to alter our perception of reality, and thus to transform reality in one way or the other. They all involve the concept of the magic circle, a symbolic device that helps us to make sure we believe in the phenomena that takes place during the rituals, while it protects the practitioner and at the same time makes sure she does not run away when the heat increases. And they all can be understood as visionary journeys that allow us to cross over to other planes in the quest for new symbols and or metaphors that heal us from the repetition of the old ones. Therefore, I use my play-based illustration practice to release and integrate the raw material that emerges from my unconscious, and therefore to heal from spiritual diseases such as loss of soul, to transform myself, and to connect with the collective unconscious. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos.
Thank you.
That was a very interesting discussion that you provoked here. And I'm sure there's some questions here for the panel guests, yeah?
Okay, thanks. Analyses here. I have found very interesting all the exercises you have developed. And I would like to know more about how you use the tarot deck cards. You know, just I guess the first one, but not the second one. I don't know how you use
I don't know. I mean, I haven't reached to that point. The thing is, for the original deck that was called Dream Cards, my inspiration was tarot decks. You know, like initially I started with Rider White, then I passed to Marcel, then I discovered Crowley's thought tarot. So I love tarot, and only recently I discovered that, of course, it is connected with the juxtaposition phenomenon of collage or cut-ups, or also with graphic novels or comics, you know, because it's the way you work with the panels, you know, and the thing is, if you move one to the other side, then you have a different meaning. So this is the way I work with it. When I create, I usually do it as children do, you know, like they are believing in what they are doing. I mean, if I reach that state, that's a good state. This is what the aim of the thing, you know, to believe in magic again. Let's say. I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
All right.
What medium were you using? You know, with the Hyperdream cards,
Yes.
the blues. What did you use?
One of these magic pencils. Yeah, they are the ones I have been using lately are called the Coinor ones.
It looks super vivid. It's got that like iridescent quality.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just like many of the things I do are aim to recover certain mystical experiences, let's say. So I try to remain in that state of mind, which is not very easy, by the way.
And you said that you'd included experiences from your past as well to feed into that. How personal does that get? Does that get?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean the general title of my thesis, or the subfield where I operate is related to authorial illustration practice. And authorial is usually, this subfield of illustration is usually related to autobiographical stories, you know, when you work a graphic novel or any story you work. So I'm trying to connect with my voice, and for that I need to bring myself in. And so I am gathering work I did years ago, but it is still loaded with meaning for me. So I try to remember that, and it's kind of a hard experience to put all that all together, you know. Thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
Yeah.
I was wondering how you see art and magic in culture sort of combining in the future. I'm thinking like virtual reality or other techniques.
Yeah. I believe so far, I mean, drawing from one of the concepts Hakim Bey wrote, I believe it was 1994, he used to say that this degrees of mediation, virtual reality is the most mediated experience, because you have less intervention of your imagination. Everything is designed for you. Still, I believe in the future, of course, virtual reality is going to be probably one of the, even a task space, you know, a time autonomous zone, or we have to conquer it. Right now, there is a development of a new tool called the tilt brush. That is something that you can use to make kind of drawing sculptures in virtual reality. Of course, we have to be careful because all this is very mediated, but it could be a very interesting spot to expand our imaginations, I believe. Yeah.
It strikes me that the states of mind that you achieve or that you're wanting to be drawn to or up into or with the play-based thing are very much like craft-based work, whether it be weaving or certain types of farming or say something like repetitive tasks like bookbinding, furniture making or whatever. I spend a lot of time with people like that, worked in a lot of things like that, and exactly those free states, that flow does occur. And it seems quite interesting that with that element in society disappearing, people not having those jobs where people working in your fields are trying to bring those state of minds back into society, and how close they are to magical states of mind. Actually, quite extraordinary. I mean, apparently non-creative acts actually produce extraordinary creativity. Things which appear very repetitive and very mundane. And really do produce very sensitive states of mind, very natural states of mind.
Trying it too.
It's the most wonderful trance-inducing activity possible.
I love sewing. I've always loved sewing.
In fact, I heard an interview with a Japanese Zen master on Radio 4 where he said he'd spent most of his life trying to encourage students to gain enlightenment through meditation practices, which they found quite difficult, and he'd recently learned to knit and realised that you could do it in a day.
It's amazing as well. It's just those states of mind were kind of were produced, like in the Gurdjieff work in the fourth way, by replicating traditional craft practices, but also there was certain types of music and songs that went with each craft practice, and it literally produced that frame of mind. I remember working
like
in Nottingham.
walking songs.
In lace making in Nottingham, I was taught to sew books by ladies that worked in lace making, and they all had specific songs for types of work that to an extent allowed you to get through the hard part of the day. It was really about producing euphoria and a flow in the
Exactly.
work.
I can tell you what I discovered about rituals, basically, which is also the key subject behind all this. It is ritual means repetition. So the thing is, why do we practice rituals? And actually, my perspective is that we practice rituals because this repetition makes us feel secure. And the thing is, this security allows us to go really far away. So the thing is, you have repetition here, and the repetition has a double function. First of all, it is a springboard to go far, far away. But at the same time, this repetition is the one that's going to bring you back. So this is my interpretation of the phenomenon.
It's also why in traditional forms of witchcraft, precisely those repetitive activities like sewing, knitting, weaving are associated with effective practical magic, with operative magic, with casting spells, because it's that free trance-induced state produced by the activities that makes that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, someone has to do this job. And, it's always a thing that at a conference you start a discussion, but we have to kind of police and make sure everyone gets their set slot for half an hour. So, Sophie's up next. But, Carlos, I'm sure you started a discussion here today with other people in the room and can continue that after lunch. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So,